Today we're digging into something really interesting. Chapter 45, Greatness, from the Built for God Handbook. It's described as the Christian edition of the Tao Te Ching.
Right. And the chapter itself says its mission is, and I'm quoting loosely here, to present the gospel through a new expression of God's love. The goal, to restore the truth. So it's got some big aims.
It definitely does. And to guide us, the chapter uses this framework called renewal. It breaks down into mindset, aim, practice, and respond. We'll follow that structure today, so it should be easy to, keep track.
Perfect. And listen, we're going to hit on some ideas about greatness that might make you pause. Things like great perfection seems imperfect, or that great eloquence seems silent. Kind of turns things on their head, doesn't it?
It really does. Intriguing stuff.
So ready to maybe rethink a few things. Let's dive in, starting with the first part of renewal, mindset.
Okay, mindset. The first point here is about embracing what the chapter calls humble, enduring perfection.
Humble perfection. What does that mean exactly? Not flawless.
Well, yeah, precisely. It's suggesting true perfection isn't about that shiny, flawless exterior we often imagine. It's more about an understated, durable usefulness, something that lasts.
Less about looking perfect right now, more about being valuable over time. The handbook mentions teachers, right? Focusing on real understanding.
Exactly. Teachers who aim for that deep, long-term grasp in their students, not just, hitting the immediate targets or getting recognition. It's about building something solid.
That makes sense.
Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart.
Right. Focus on the inside.
And also 2 Corinthians 12:9, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. So it's strength found in humility, in that inner quality that truly endures.
Okay, that's a powerful starting point. What's the next mindset shift?
It's about appreciating inner fullness over, let's say, external abundance. Basically, shifting focus from piling up stuff or status to finding richness inside.
So moving away from thinking more is better in terms of material things.
Pretty much. The text encourages seeking that deep spiritual fulfillment, something that, buying more things just can't give you. It's about cultivating what's within.
And you can see that playing out, right? Finding real joy in, say, relationships or time in nature or just quiet moments instead of constantly chasing likes or the next big purchase.
Absolutely. And the scriptures mentioned here really highlight this. Psalm 23:1, the Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. That speaks to a kind of inherent completeness. And Matthew 6:19 directly warns, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth. The focus is internal.
Okay, next point. This one feels like something many of us wrestle with. Trusting God's ways, even when they seem indirect. The chapter uses the phrase, great straightness seems crooked. How do you deal with that?
This suggests divine guidance might not always fit our neat little boxes. Our human logic might not grasp it immediately. And that's where faith comes in.
So instead of demanding a perfectly logical roadmap, it's more about prioritizing prayer, discernment, trusting the process, even if it feels winding.
That's the idea. It's a kind of surrender, really. Proverbs 3:5 says it clearly. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding.
Don't lean on your own understanding.
And Isaiah 55:8 reinforces it. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways, my ways. Trusting a wisdom beyond our own.
Okay. The next mindset shift is about skill. Valuing humility and skill. That great skill seems clumsy. What's that about?
It suggests that real talent, true competence, isn't necessarily about flashiness or self-promotion. It's often expressed best through, quiet service, helping others.
So it's not about how loudly you proclaim your skills, but the actual positive impact they have.
Exactly. Think about leaders who boost their team rather than themselves, or someone really gifted using their talent to help out without needing a big fanfare. It's a kind of confident humility.
Yeah, I can picture that.
Definitely. James 4:10 advises, humble yourselves before the Lord and he will lift you up. And Philippians 2:3 is very direct. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves. Service first.
Okay, next. Let silence speak. This idea that great eloquence seems silent, that feels countercultural in our noisy world.
It really does. The chapter is saying that sometimes the most profound communication doesn't happen through words. Silence can actually hold immense power for connection, for understanding. It's about presence, listening.
So like being there for someone who's grieving, just offering quiet support instead of feeling you have to fill the air with words or fixes.
Precisely. Sometimes just being present says more than anything else. Isaiah 30:15 notes, in quietness and trust is your strength.
Quietness and trust.
And James 1.19 gives that classic advice. Be quick to listen, slow to speak. Value the pause, the space.
Love that. Okay, next mindset. Honoring the balance between action and rest. The text says something like, bustling about overcomes cool times, but stillness overcomes heated times.
Yeah, it points to this necessary rhythm, doesn't it? It's saying we need both. We need purposeful activity, sure, but we also absolutely need that intentional stillness for our, spiritual and emotional health. It's not one or the other.
So it's about avoiding burnout by consciously building in rest, like scheduling breaks, maybe a weekly Sabbath, or even just mindful moments during the day.
Exactly that. Making it intentional. Be still and know that I am God.
Be still.
And Matthew 11.28 offers that invitation. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. It's okay, even encouraged, to rest.
Okay, the last mindset point. Finding guidance in nature's stillness. Stillness and silence are the way of nature. How does that work?
It's suggesting we can learn a lot by just observing the natural world, its rhythms, its cycles, its quiet persistence. There's wisdom there. It can bring clarity, maybe inspiration if we just pay attention.
So practically that means things like spending time outdoors, maybe going for a walk, and actually looking around, noticing the details.
Yeah, exactly. Connecting with God's creation. Psalm 23.2-3 paints that picture. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul.
Quiet water.
And Psalm 19.1 declares, the heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Nature is speaking, in a way. We just need to listen.
Okay, that's a deep dive just on mindset. Now, how does this translate into the next part of renewal, which is aim?
Well, the aims follow very logically. The first one is aiming for lasting value over immediate perfection. It directly mirrors that first mindset, right?
Okay. So intentionally focus on the long-term impact, not just looking perfect now, like building something sturdy, even if it's not perfectly polished.
Precisely. Prioritize substance over a shiny surface. The application given is focusing on long-term service rather than just getting quick recognition. It's about the legacy.
Makes sense. And the scriptures.
Matthew 6.19-20 talks about treasures in heaven versus treasures on earth, and Psalm 112.6 says the righteous will be remembered forever. Aiming for that lasting significance.
Next aim.
Aiming for inner fullness rather than external accumulation. Again, directly reflects that earlier mindset.
Right. So consciously choosing to cultivate peace, wisdom inside, instead of just chasing more stuff or status.
Exactly. The aim is that inner cultivation. Practically, it could mean aiming to practice gratitude more, aiming for spiritual reflection, nurturing your inner life.
Rather than aiming for the next bigger house or fancier car.
Right. Psalm 23.1 again. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. And 1 Timothy 6.6, godliness with contentment is great gain. Aiming for that kind of gain.
Okay, next aim. Trusting in God's mysterious path. Echoing that great straightness seems crooked idea.
Yes. The aim here is to intentionally choose faith when things aren't clear. To aim to rely on divine guidance even when it feels illogical or roundabout from our view.
So aiming for surrender, in a way. When facing big choices, aim to pray, to seek guidance, even if the answer isn't a straight line.
That's it. Aiming to trust beyond our own understanding. Proverbs 3.5, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and Isaiah 55.8, neither are your ways my ways. Aiming for that kind of trust.
Next is about skills. Aiming to develop skills for service, not self-promotion.
Yeah, tying back to humility and skill, the aim is to use your talents to genuinely help others, not primarily to get applause or get ahead yourself, directing skills outward.
So the intention behind honing your craft should be, how can this help?
That's the core aim, whether it's work, hobbies, community stuff, using your strengths to uplift others. 1 Peter 5.6 says, humble yourselves under God's mighty hand. And Philippians 2.3, do nothing out of selfish ambition. Aim for humble service.
Got it. Next aim, let silence and presence speak. Aligning with great eloquence seems silent.
Right. The aim is to communicate effectively, yes, but not just through words. Aiming to convey understanding, support wisdom through your actions, your attentiveness, your quiet presence.
So aiming to be a better listener, aiming to be fully present, letting your actions speak louder sometimes.
Exactly. Aiming for that kind of impactful presence. Isaiah 30.15 points to strength and quietness. Yeah. Colossians 4.6 talks about gracious conversation, which isn't necessarily lots of conversation.
Okay, next. Aiming to balance action with stillness.
Yes. The aim is a life that intentionally includes both purposeful activity and restorative rest, not letting one completely overwhelm the other. aiming for that equilibrium.
So aiming to structure your life with both work and rest built in, not just letting rest happen if there's time left over.
Precisely, aiming for that conscious balance. Matthew 11.28's promise of rest, Psalm 46.10's be still. The aim is to live out that balance.
Now the final aim, finding wisdom in nature's silence and stillness.
Yeah. Aiming to intentionally learn from the natural world, making time to observe its rhythms, its stillness, and seeing it as a source of insight, a reflection of divine wisdom.
So aiming to actually spend time outdoors, pay attention, and let it teach you about patience, balance, maybe wonder.
That's the aim. Psalm 23.2, he makes me lie down in green pastures. Psalm 19.1, the heavens declare. Aiming to connect with that wisdom.
Okay, we've covered mindset and aim. Now the renewal framework moves to practice. How do we actually do these things? What are the concrete actions?
Right. Practice is where it gets tangible. And it follows directly. First practice. Humility over perfectionism. Taking that great perfection seems imperfect idea and, well, practicing it.
So practicing acceptance, allowing for mistakes in yourself and others, not chasing some impossible standard.
Exactly. Practicing grace. The example given is leaders admitting mistakes openly. It's about actively choosing humility. Luke 14.11 talks about humbling and exaltation. James 4.6 about God favoring the humble. The practice is active humility.
Okay. Next practice. Contentment in simplicity.
The practice here is actively focusing on inner richness over outer accumulation. Practicing gratitude for what you do have, finding joy in simple things.
So maybe practicing this by keeping a gratitude journal or consciously choosing experiences over possessions sometimes.
Those are great examples. It's about actively practicing contentment. 1 Timothy 6.6, godliness with contentment is great gain. And Hebrews 13.5, be content with what you have. Practice being content.
Next, practicing trust in God's path. Making that aim a daily habit. How?
Well, the practice is consciously letting go of the need to control everything. Actively choosing to trust God's guidance, especially when it's unclear.
So maybe practicing this through daily prayer. Like explicitly offering your day, your decisions to God, and practicing openness to where things lead, even if it's unexpected.
That's a very practical way to put it. Actively practicing surrender. Proverbs 3.5, trust in the Lord. Jeremiah 29 about God's plans. It's a daily practice of trust.
Okay. Practicing humility in skill and service.
The practice is consistently using your talents to help others, humbly, without needing the spotlight, actively looking for ways to serve.
So practicing this could mean volunteering regularly, or mentoring someone, or just being helpful in everyday situations without expecting thanks.
Exactly. Consistent action. Colossians 3.23, working as for the Lord. 1 Peter 5.6, humbling yourselves. Practice serving humbly.
Next, practicing silence and deep listening. Turning great eloquence seems silent into an action.
The practice is actively cultivating that ability to really listen, paying full attention, resisting the urge to interrupt, valuing pauses, and choosing your own words thoughtfully.
So practicing this in conversations means focus on the other person, don't plan your reply while they're talking, allow for silence.
Yes, exactly. Practice active, deep listening. James 1.19, quick to listen, slow to speak. Proverbs 17.28 about the wisdom of silence. Practice mindful communication.
Okay. Practicing the balance of action and rest. Making that rhythm real.
This practice is about intentionally building both into your life. Scheduling breaks, protecting rest time, maybe observing a Sabbath, actively creating a sustainable rhythm.
So practicing this isn't passive. It's proactively managing your energy, ensuring you actually do rest and recharge.
Precisely. Exodus 20.8, remember the Sabbath. Matthew 11.28, come and rest. It's an active practice of balance.
Next, practicing learning from nature's stillness and rhythm.
Yeah, the practice is intentionally spending time in nature, observing it, reflecting on what it teaches about patience, balance, God's creation.
So practicing this could be a daily walk, gardening, just sitting outside and paying attention, actively engaging with the natural world.
That's the idea. Practice connecting. Psalm 19.1, the heavens declare. Psalm 23.2-3, quiet waters refresh. Practice learning from nature.
And the final practice listed.
It's practicing letting go of control and surrendering to God's will, making that aim of seeking fulfillment in God a daily, conscious choice.
So how do you practice surrender?
It involves consciously releasing that tight grip on wanting to manage everything, actively offering your worries, ambitions, desires to God in prayer, trusting His plan over yours.
Like a daily practice of saying, okay, God, guide me today, and practicing trust in that guidance, even if it's not what you expected.
Exactly. Matthew 6.33, seek first His kingdom, Romans 12.2, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. It's a practice of daily intentional surrender.
Okay, wow. Mindset, aim, practice. That brings us to the final part of renewal.
Respond is really about the outcome, the transformation. It's how these inner shifts, the mindset, the aims, the practices lead to a change in spirit, moving towards holiness and equipping us to make disciples. It's how it all manifests outwardly.
So it's about how this inner work changes how we interact with the world and with others, fostering meaningful dialogue, maybe across different perspectives.
That's a big part of it. And the first point under respond circles back to imperfection. Imperfection leads to lasting usefulness. The specific line was, great perfection seems imperfect, but its lasting usefulness is unfailing.
Right. And the chapter connects this Christian idea to other traditions.
It does, quite thoughtfully. It mentions Buddhism's wabi-sabi finding beauty in imperfection, Islam's focus on the heart and deeds, not just outward appearance, citing Sahih Muslim, and Hinduism's view in the Bhagavad Gita that imperfection is part of growth.
So it's highlighting a kind of shared human wisdom, that our flaws aren't just failures, but maybe part of the path.
Exactly. It suggests these different paths converge on this understanding. Imperfection isn't a barrier to the divine, but maybe even a doorway. It's unifying, really.
Yeah. And the response is accepting flaws, ours, and others as chances to grow. Like 1 Corinthians 1.27 says, God chose the foolish things.
Right. Then the next point in respond is about fulfillment. True fulfillment comes from inner contentment, linked to gratefulness seems empty, and yet it is inexhaustible.
And again, parallels elsewhere.
Yes. Buddhism linking desire to suffering. Islam emphasizing contentment for a fulfilling life, pointing to the Quran. Hinduism in the Gita talking about contentment through detachment.
So the shared idea is that real lasting peace isn't about getting more stuff, but cultivating something inside.
Precisely. A universal understanding, really. And the response is actively practicing gratitude, avoiding that comparison trap, like Philippians 4 encourages, learning the secret of contentment.
Okay, the third aspect of respond.
It's surrender and trust in God's plan, tied to great straightness seems crooked.
And the cross-faith connections here.
Again, quite striking. Buddhism's idea of surrendering to the flow. Islam's assurance in the Quran that God provides a way out. Hinduism's emphasis in the Gita on surrendering actions to divine will.
So a common thread of acknowledging we're not fully in control and finding peace or purpose in trusting a higher power.
That seems to be the shared insight. The response is making decisions rooted in that prayer or reflection, trusting the guidance, like Proverbs 3.5-6 suggests.
Makes sense. What's next?
Service through humility, which connects to great skill seems clumsy.
Okay, and the parallels.
Buddhism's bodhisattva ideal of compassionate service. Islam's teaching in Sahih al-Bukhari that the best people are those who benefit others. Hinduism's focus in the Gita on selfless action.
So a universal value placed on serving others selflessly as part of a meaningful life.
Exactly. It's fundamental across these traditions. The response is actively engaging in service without needing recognition, valuing others above ourselves, as Philippians 2.3 says.
And the final point in response.
The power of silence and stillness linked to great eloquence seems silent.
And the connections.
Buddhism's practices of meditation and mindfulness, Islam's encouragement in the Quran for reflection on God, Hinduism's discipline of mana, sacred silence for self-realization.
So silence isn't just empty space, but a recognized tool for spiritual growth across different paths.
That's the shared understanding highlighted here. Silence connects us, helps us find wisdom. The response is intentionally building silence into our lives, trusting in that stillness, like Exodus 14.14 suggests.
And the chapter wraps this up with a quote.
Yes, a powerful one from St. Thomas Aquinas. Truth cannot contradict truth. It's used here to emphasize this idea of shared wisdom, these resonant truths found across different traditions.
That really ties it together. So to sort of recap, chapter 45 gives us this challenging view of greatness, where things often aren't what they seem on the surface.
Exactly. Great perfection might look imperfect, but lasts. True fullness can feel empty, but is inexhaustible. Straight paths might seem crooked. Real skill can look clumsy. And profound eloquence might actually be silent, these paradoxes.
And this renewal framework mindset, aim, practice, respond. It's like a practical toolkit, isn't it, for taking these big ideas and actually living them?
It really is. It gives you a path from just, understanding the concepts to actively weaving them into your thoughts, your intentions, your daily actions, and how you engage with everyone around you.
So for you listening, as you process all this from chapter 45, here's something to chew on.
Yeah.
Which of these paradoxical ideas about greatness hits closest to home for you right now? And maybe think about how embracing something like, say, imperfect perfection, or finding the value in eloquent silence, how might that actually shift things for you, your perspective, maybe your next steps?
Yeah, definitely food for thought. And we'd encourage you, if this sparked something, maybe check out the Built for Greatness, Built for God handbook itself, or just explore these concepts further on your own.
Absolutely. We hope you'll join us again next time for another deep dive into the kinds of ideas that shape how we see ourselves in the world.